So Mark and I now have the very distinct honor of presenting the 2022 Paul Simon Courage in Public Service Award. Before Mark presents this award, I want to provide a little bit of history. The award itself was established to recognize an Illinois public official who exemplifies the late U.S. Senator Paul Simon's commitment to developing just, compassionate, and responsible public policy. Let that sink in for a minute. Just, compassionate, and responsible public policy. Even 19 years after his death, his commitment to his constituents, both in Illinois and across the nation, remains a gold standard for elected officials and public servants. Senator Simon said, "You and I are on this planet but a short time. Let us seize this time and opportunity to build a better tomorrow so that generations to come will look back and say, these were people of uncommon passion and vision and courage." I don't know about you, but I would feel blessed when I go to meet my maker that people later say these were people of uncommon compassion, vision, and courage. At the inaugural presentation of the award, Senator Simon's wife, Patty, said, "You too can have the same courage a public official has when he or she comes up with legislation that isn't very popular and do something that really helps a lot of people. You can do the same in your communities, in your churches, in your schools." And I think that's a great call to all of us to live out the values that Senator Simon so displayed. So this is the 16th year in which we have presented the Paul Simon Courage in Public Service Award. It's a lasting legacy to an amazing individual and a standard we should all aspire to in our work for the people we are honored to serve. So I'm going to turn this over to Mark, who is going to present this year's Paul Simon Courage in Public Service Award.
It is my privilege and honor to present the award to Representative Moeller. As a legislator representing the 43rd District, Representative Moeller has strived for those same ideals that Senator Simon possessed, as Mike described. Much like Senator Simon, Representative Moeller's career has been dedicated to human service. She has served as the founding executive director of the McHenry County Council of Governments, assistant village administrator for the village of Lake in the Hills, and was elected councilwoman for the city of Elgin in 2011. And before her career in government, Representative Moeller taught English as a second language. During her 8 years in the Illinois House of Representatives, Representative Moeller has championed legislation on pay equity, good government reforms, increased access to health care, care for individuals who are elderly or developmentally disabled, and bills that advance LGBTQIA+ equality, to name a few. Specifically, in this last session, Representative Moeller has sponsored or signed on to legislation that addressed nursing home funding reform, bereavement leave, expansion of the earned income tax credit for low-income families, as well as legislation to address social isolation in nursing homes. She was also a leader for legislation calling for increased rates for child welfare providers. Thank you. Representative Moeller currently serves as chair of the Human Services Committee and vice chair of the Human Services Appropriations Committee. These are two committees that directly impact the work of social service organizations. Representative Moeller, we are grateful for your insight, for your support of human service and our shared work for the people of Illinois. It's my privilege to present you the 2022 Paul Simon Courage in Public Service Award.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark, and everyone here celebrating and observing Lutheran Day. It is an incredible honor, and I'm truly humbled to receive the 2022 Paul Simon Award for Courage in Public Service from Lutheran Social Services of Illinois and Lutheran Child and Family Services. I was raised in the Lutheran Church. I was raised by my grandparents, who adopted me when I was 18 months old. And my formative years were certainly influenced by my faith, by the church, and by following the teachings of Jesus Christ. Your mission of faith-based advocacy and activism on behalf of the most vulnerable in our state reflect the values that I try to live up to every day as a public servant. So this award is truly meaningful to me. And of course, the legacy of Senator Paul Simon and the enormous example that he has set for all of us of good government and principled government and caring for people most in need. It truly is very humbling to me to be named, to receive an award in his name. It is, we have just lived through one of the most challenging periods in the state's history, coming out of the budget impasse that we experienced several years ago under the Rauner administration, and now coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. I know that our social service agencies have been under incredible stress to continue to serve the most vulnerable in our communities. And through it all, you have heroically kept going and been there for our foster children and families in need. Even when funding was threatened, when the state wasn't paying its bills on time, you kept the mission and the purpose and remained in the gap for those who truly need a loving and caring support in our state. And I'm truly grateful for all the work that you've done over the past several years. It was an honor to be appointed in 2021 as the chair of the House Human Services Committee and vice chair of the House Human Services Appropriations Committee, and also to serve on the Medicaid Working Group, which is a bicameral, bipartisan group of legislators who meet weekly while we're in session to talk about expansion and changes to Medicaid funded programs. And as we all know, Medicaid is the state program that provides health insurance and funding for programs that help low-income families. Over the past year, our state has made tremendous strides to expand Medicaid funding and meet the needs of more people in our state. We expanded Medicaid to cover those who are in our country but have not yet been naturalized as citizens, so that they have access to health insurance. We've also expanded access to midwifery and doula services to address the high maternal mortality rates that we still see in our state. And we've also expanded funding for our safety net hospitals and critical care facilities that serve underserved areas. Knowing also that providing funding for programs that help the youngest in our communities and young families, we increased funding for parents too soon and childcare for low-income families. And we also increased funding for individuals who have developmental disabilities and the people who take care of them. At the other end of the spectrum, and you mentioned it in your remarks, I've been very concerned about the state of our nursing homes in Illinois. Historically, we've had some of the most understaffed nursing homes in the country, and the COVID-19 pandemic really laid bare the challenging conditions in many of these facilities. So as chair of the Human Services Committee, along with the Mental Health and Addiction Committee, we conducted several hearings starting last year on the state of our nursing homes. We talked to families, we talked to residents, we talked to workers in nursing homes to understand what the conditions were like. And based on those hearings and also the work of Healthcare and Family Services Department and many, many, many months of negotiations between stakeholders, we introduced a bill and that I was privileged to sponsor in the House, and Senator Gillespie sponsored in the Senate, that will require greater accountability, transparency, and quality improvements in our nursing homes. It's the biggest reform bill that has passed in the last 10 years to address nursing home conditions. And we are, we will keep an eye on this to make sure that the most vulnerable in our communities receive the care and can live in dignity and security, towards the end of their lives. I also passed a legislation to address social isolation in nursing homes and a bill to allow spouses of nursing home residents who receive Medicaid funding to keep more of their income so that they don't slip into poverty. For the next year, I look forward to continuing to work with all of you to strengthen our foster care system. I know that it has been a challenge over the last several years for our agencies to purchase insurance through the private market because of the lack of availability in private insurance plans and the cost for the premiums. So I'm committed to continuing to work on that issue so that you can continue to do the jobs that you need to do, caring for our foster children, and not have to endure such draconian and difficult increases. We need to continue to find ways to strengthen the child welfare system in Illinois. I know you'll be hearing from a representative from DCFS. They do the very, very, very difficult work of protecting children who are in unsafe family situations in our state. And they inherited a system that was very under-resourced several years ago and are trying to find ways to fill that gap and make sure that our kids are placed in safe homes, safe and loving homes, and provided the mental health services and other programs that they need. And then finally, I look forward to working with you to continue to strengthen our social service support network. We have made strides in passing balanced budgets. We are in a good financial condition right now at the state, but we can't take that for granted. We have to continue to ensure that we are managing our resources wisely while investing and providing the support that we need to organizations like yours who do God's work, quite frankly, in helping the most needy in our state. So again, it is a tremendous honor to be awarded the Paul Simon Award for Courage in Public Service. Thank you so much for this recognition, and I look forward to partnering with you and supporting you and working with you over the coming year. Thank you again.
Representative Moeller, I was told you might be willing to take some questions. Are you still willing to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would like to just get things started. It's a similar question that I asked Representative Harris, Leader Harris, and that's what biggest challenge or challenges do you see coming up in this next year and this next assembly?
Well, we are still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Even though we're not quite, things are not quite as critical as they were last year or the year before. But certainly it has continued to take a toll on our economy. We are seeing inflation, high inflation and cost of living affecting so many families across the state. And so that's, I think, making sure that we are addressing the challenges that are coming out of that are related to and a result of the high cost of living, I think is going to continue to be a challenge for the state. I'm proud of many of the steps that we took this last year to help address that by relaxing and suspending some of our taxes, the grocery tax, and suspending the increase in the gas tax, and providing direct relief to families. That we can provide, that will be coming to families in the fall. But I suspect that, we may be heading into a recession, and that's going to create big challenges for us. And as social service providers, one of I think the biggest challenge is when our economy starts to suffer, the demand for services increases, but resources to the state and to organizations are also decreased. So, finding a way that we can continue to support families while we are experiencing declines in revenues is always a challenge. But we did set aside $1 billion this year in a rainy day fund to help soften a little bit of that impact. And but that will be a challenge next year.
Representative Moeller, we have a question from the chat that I'd like to share. Someone has asked, how can advocates like us partner with elected officials to get meaningful legislation passed?
That's a great question. And something an area that I just want to say that, your organizations have great representation down in Springfield. I work closely with Ben Lazar, who keeps me very updated on issues and concerns that your organizations might have with different bills or policies or budget issues that come up. But it's important that citizens and residents and advocates communicate directly with their legislators and, get to know who your legislator is, and make an appointment, reach out to them, introduce yourself, and establish a relationship, so that they know who you are and what you care about. We're only in our position because people, have confidence in us and let us be in these roles through the electoral process. So it's important that we stay accessible to our constituents and to organizations that serve our constituents. So don't be afraid to reach out directly to your legislator about the issues that you're concerned about, and stay involved with organizations like LSSI, who have a network that throughout the state and can communicate with legislators that represent different areas of the state. That it's an effective and powerful network, and one that I rely on, to help to help shape, my opinion and my knowledge of issues when bills come before me.